Hey everybody, Edo here, and I am super excited today because I have Chris and Suzanne Zinsley, founders of Cardboard Edison. So say hello.
Hi, thank you for having us.
Hello.
Oh, it's my pleasure. And for those who don't know, Cardboard Edison is this industry and design super site that just has tons of awesome information and blogs and interviews and reports. And we're going to talk all about it in the game contest and all this cool stuff. But to sort of kick things off, how did you two, what's the story? How did it come to be, and how are we now with all this wealth of information you've put out?
So we started getting into game design a few years ago, and we realized that we had no idea what we were talking about. We knew nothing about the industry, nothing about how to design a game, how to get it out there. So we started doing some research, and we found out there are lots of people like us out there who want to design games and want to get them out there and get them published. And there was lots of useful information, but it was all over the place. It was a little hard to track down. So we made our website as kind of a central place to put all of that information and share it with everybody.
Awesome. And out of curiosity, just up front, did it always look at one of the things I love about the site and just the material in general is it has a really bright, well, like the graphic design and sort of feel of it is very much in line with the idea of what you were doing. Did it always look that way? Has it shifted to this over the years? Or is
It,
this
it keeps
basically, go ahead.
it keeps evolving. We've been doing it for 7 years now. We never anticipated that we would be where we are now. And we're thinking about stuff in the future, and still with the goal of helping designers make their games better and get their games published.
Awesome, awesome. And so, when you think of your site and your services and everything that you do, how do you break it down? Like when you're like, cardboard is these three things or these five things or this one thing. How do you pitch it or say it or sell it?
Just basically that we do a lot of different things, but it kind of all goes back to helping designers make their game the best they can be, and get it out there. So we have the blog that rounds up useful materials from other places around the internet. And we also have some original things. We have interviews and infographics. We run an annual award for an unpublished game design. We have databases of publishers and playtest groups and all sorts of useful materials. Basically anything that a board game designer or an aspiring board game designer might find useful.
Yeah, and I would emphasize really that value to the game designer as sort of next to Kickstarter creator or some of these other sites and blogs, right? There's a lot of different areas of making a game today, but yours is really focused on the design craft and understanding. I mean, there's other stuff, and you interview other, but that focus on how to make a great game and be a part of the community and those resources is spectacular. And certainly, since a lot of people who watch this, my channel, are small up and coming designers or creators, it's an amazing resource. In terms of, and I mean, I think you have the playtest stuff, the infographics. How did you come about? And the infographics are a lot of fun. I mean, those are nice, fun, big chunks of information. How did you start taking that on? Like, that's like a big. That's not just like let's put up a graph. I mean, those are very well crafted and put together.
So a lot of the content on our site comes from things that we want to know. So the infographics are a great example of that. We were curious, what are the different parts that make a good licensing deal and all that, and that was really what started. And then we asked our, hey, would anybody be interested in this? And we found that a lot of people were interested in it, so we decided to go and compile the information and put it out there. And we have a great graphic artist for that, Brad Smalley. He did all the beautiful graphics for that.
Yeah, I'm actually looking at that. I assume the one you're talking about is that view from a deal.
All of the ones about the licensing contracts, we did a survey of designers, and we did a whole series of infographics looking at the data in various ways. So I think we put out 5 or 6 of them over the course of a few months, and Brad did the graphic design for all of them.
Oh, awesome, awesome. And okay, and so you have those reports, you have the blogs, and you have the services about connecting, publishers. Your contest has pretty high esteem. If I'm not mistaken, a number of the winners have been published, if not all of them. Can you talk a little bit? And the contest is, you just announced the finalists recently of this year. So could you just, how did that start? What's that about?
So the contest started again with our supporters asked for it. So we're like, okay. And it took a lot of time to decide how we want to actually run the contest. So the way the contest is run is designers can submit games, and we ask for a 5-minute video pitch and a rules document. And then we have some of the top people in the industry evaluate it and score it.
It's an incredible set of judges. I mean, numerous, but I was just looking, remind myself, and I was like, oh man, this is basically everybody. In a good way, right? Like, that is quite a set of people.
It's great. Like, I wish we could enter it, because I'm like, oh man, I want some of these people to look at our games.
That's what Suzanne for.
It's been really cool. And the past 2 winners, this is our 3rd year. So each year the winner has been published, surprisingly by Renegade Games each year. And a lot of the finalists have been published also from the past years, and also some non-finalists have also been published, because we have designers and publishers and industry people looking at the games. So if they see a game that they think might be a good fit for their company or a company they know, we put them in touch with the designer. So a lot of really nice connections have been made.
When you play, when you end up playing somebody's game and you're judging it, and you're like, I think I should contact this person. So just refresh my memory. What were the last 2 winners?
So the first year was The Blood of an Englishman by Dan Cassar. Mm-hmm. And last year, the second year, was Castell by Aaron Vanderbeek. And Castell actually just within the last few weeks has started hitting game tables all over the place.
Yeah, and that's about making a tower of people up into the air. Aaron's a great guy, and that's a really fantastic game. So it's awesome, and it won and it got a publisher. And so you've just announced the finalists recently. When does this year's winner get announced? What's the timeline?
It'll be announced the end of April. We do 2 judgings. We do one judging at our house here in New Jersey, and then we do another judging in a different state. Last year we went to North Carolina. This year we're going down to Florida. And so we can get, judges from different parts of the country judging in both at both places. And we expect to have everything done by end of April.
Awesome. And just for those who missed this year but are super interested in getting in on these competitions, about when does the process start? Like, when should they keep in mind to look at the site to get ready for the 2019s or the 2018-19s?
December.
So basically, check your site December, and that's when they can get into the next year.
Yes.
Awesome. So one of the things you mentioned, I think, you didn't say viewers, supporters. You use Patreon, right? To support the work that you're doing in the site. Can you, this is another category people typically talk about, Kickstarters. If we just, in terms of Patreon, like, how long have you been using it? When did you start? How long did it take for it to be an impactful part of what you were doing versus just like a couple friends that you had to work for? Like, can you take us through the Patreon path?
Patreon has been a very big deal for us. It has definitely allowed us to do a lot more things that we wouldn't have otherwise been able to do. We launched the campaign about 3 years ago. I think it was just over 3 years ago. And
so that's pretty early on in Patreon. I mean, 3 years ago is probably around when it appeared, give or take, maybe 6 months.
Yeah, I think that we kind of got on board just as it was starting to become, enter the consciousness of the gaming public and being used by other creators in the industry. and we had been running Cardboard Edison for several years beforehand. So we had a bit of an audience built up already. So that helped us a lot when we launched the Patreon campaign to get off to a good start.
And I mean, to the extent you're comfortable sharing, about how many Patreons, or I guess they're called, they're the Patreons, right? Are you the patron?
They're the patrons.
They're patrons, right? How many patrons do you have? Like, what's the?
Oh, that's a good question. I should have checked that. I want to say it's 100 something, maybe. Maybe
it's more.
Is it over 200?
I'm pretty sure.
It might be over 200 by this point.
Well, so that's 200 people that month over month, whatever the donation amount, are providing to see the content be created. As somebody, one of the, I've thought about Patreon on and off, and one of the pieces of it is you start bifurcating your content that's openly available and sort of time locked or specialized. How have you managed that? How do you think of it when you're working on your content and sort of thinking about the patrons, and then just the general web consumers?
That's a real good question. We have long conversations about which things should be kind of freely available and out there, and which things should be sort of behind the Patreon paywall, so to speak. At the moment, I think that the only thing that is completely patrons only is our publisher directory. It's called the Compendium, and the reason for that is because it's a directory of more than 200 publishers, and it takes a lot of work to maintain. We have to subscribe to a special service, so there's some to maintain the database. There's some extra costs associated with it, in addition to the time that we put into it.
People can also purchase it, access. We also have on our website, people are able to purchase access to just the Compendium if they want to.
If they don't want to do the whole Patreon thing, we do have that.
Yeah, some people.
But for the most part, most of our stuff is freely available, and the Patreon support is for people who like what we do and get some value out of it and want to help support it and help us do more things.
Yeah, they get a scoop. They get to see our content before it's released. They get to enter the award for free. They get the publisher directory for free. We also, when we do interviews, we also ask them to vote on who they want us to interview.
Sure. Yeah, that was something, I ended up doing a Kickstarter for my channel, which was sort of it's more of a year cadence, but one of the things was people to pick, who might be somebody you interviewed or content to review or that kind of thing, to give that sort of participation. And so it's been a site for a good long time. You've reached a really nice steady state with your competition. You have your sort of regular blog content. You frequently and often retweet some of my stuff, which I very much appreciate. So thank you for that.
We love your channel. You do good stuff.
Thanks. How do you, if you look at what the site is today versus next year or after, do you feel like you're doing what you want to be doing? Do you feel like there's areas you want to be expanding into that you haven't had the chance or planning? Like what do you guys look like as we move into the future?
We hope to expand pretty widely. The past few years we've been very busy with family obligations. We have 2 young daughters, and we had other family stuff going on, so that took a lot of our time. But now, as our girls are getting older and other obligations have been lifted, we're able to really focus more on the company. And our youngest daughter actually just started preschool in January. So 4 days a week for 3 hours a day.
I remember
I'm able to work.
Yeah. Just wait until one's in, second grade and the other's in kindergarten, or however far apart they are. You're just going to be like, what? What has happened? And then suddenly you'll be like, I don't mind paying taxes because I get public school,
Yeah, right.
or whatever, right?
It's perfect.
Okay. You're hoping to have more time and to expand. Can you talk a little bit about what you have in mind? Is that public, or?
Yeah.
Don't mean to put you on the spot.
We have a lot of we have a lot of ideas.
Yeah, one of the things that we are working on now.
I'm a little nervous what she's going to say.
I can pause it and you guys can have what do I?
One of the things I work on now is a podcast, which is supported from our Patreon supporters. And we also will probably talk to some more of our supporters and ask them what we can do to better support them, like what can we provide, and take it from there.
Cool. And, we're sort of rounding out all the different things you do. Are there any, I mean, you have the different directories and the playtest group finder and reports. Do you, and again, maybe I get it, it's right in the center, why didn't you, but do you also have any services that you provide or like, to design, develop, or work on projects, or is it really exclusive to this site where you're just providing support to people who are doing those things?
No, we do a fair amount of kind of industry work. We do design to playtesting. I do rulebook editing. I'm a professional editor, and various other services. We have regular consultation calls to help people out with their designs, getting them out there, any questions that they have about the industry. So, we actually do a fair amount of kind of one-on-one work with other designers.
Awesome. And to sort of shift gears a little bit, right? You've obviously with the site been looking at the game space over the years, right? And then over that time, Kickstarter is changing the industry, and content creation is changing, and media. When you look at all that's going on right now, I mean, from the perspective of this design, development, and industry website, which is different than a retailer or a creator. What's your perspective? Is it all good? Is it bad? Is it exciting? Is it terrifying? Like, what do you think of where the board game industry is right now and where it's going?
I think it's pretty exciting right now. I also think that there's so much out there. There's so much content. There's so many games. There's so many designers that it's a little hard to kind of keep a focus on things, but there's so many cool things coming out new each day that I find it really exciting right now.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, as a gamer, I don't think there's ever been a better time. There are so many options. A lot of people would say too many, but all of that competition is really raising the bar, and there's some amazing stuff that's coming out. And so the raising of the bar, great for the kind of end consumer, the gamers themselves, but it really is making it so that if you want to break in the industry, you got to do something special. You got to make a name for yourself. You can't, you're not going to be able to get a game out there that is subpar quite as easily as you used to.
Right, for sure. And I guess thinking about there's the industry, but then you've obviously had this this cohort of designers that's been part of your site and your experience, and presumably that's been growing as you've become more of a cornerstone of design and the community. But is there any observations you can make about new designers and new designers you see now engaging with you in the site versus, say, 3 years or 5 years ago? Like, in terms of your audience, what sort of changes have you seen in them?
I think our audience, from what I can tell, when they join our site, they're much more educated and experienced in the industry than people who joined our site 3 years ago. I think the industry has kind of blown up and almost becoming mainstream a little bit.
Sure.
So that it's not uncommon for, your neighbors to be gamers or to meet people that you wouldn't expect at game conventions. So I think that has really educated the designer a little bit more and them a little bit more experience.
Yeah, definitely. I don't think you see quite as many people showing up with zero clue about the industry. I mean, every once in a while you do, but I agree with what Suzanne said, that in general, most of the newcomers, they have a bit of a higher level of knowledge these days than they used to.
Interesting. And have you do you monitor and track which of the designers actually move along far enough to have a successful Kickstarter campaign or get published, or you just sort of know anecdotally when it happens?
I don't keep track of it. Do you?
I mean, basically, it's what do we see on Twitter? What are people talking about on Board Game Geek or on Reddit? There are lots of anecdotes of people who have found success. A lot of anecdotes of people who haven't been able to find success and who are still working at it.
Yeah, certainly.
Yeah.
How's gaming in New Jersey?
So we live in a pretty, we're in Northwest Jersey, and there's not a whole lot of people around us. Oh,
Okay.
there's people, but not a whole lot of gamers. However, our next door neighbors are actually gamers, which is fantastic. We invited them over for dinner one night, and they were looking at our game shelf, and they were like, "Wow, but you guys don't have Settlers of Catan." And we were like, "Oh, you guys know Settlers?" So they come over regularly. Yeah, I mean, it's okay. It's not bad. We have a game day here about once a month that we get, half a dozen to a dozen people over. We do play testing several times during the month that we have a couple people over. There's some really good conventions here. Double Exposure runs Dex Conjugation and Metatopia.
Oh, is that all here too?
Yeah, that's about half an hour from us.
Oh, awesome. What's that guy's name? It's slipping my mind. The guy who runs Double
Vinny?
Vinny. Is he based out of New Jersey?
They're in New York.
Oh, New York. Got it.
Yeah, I don't know if he originally lived in New Jersey, but the conventions are here in Morristown, New Jersey.
Yeah, I remembered it being the East Coast, but I wasn't sure. I'm originally from New York.
Oh, nice.
So I'm from the East Coast. I'm living on the West Coast now, but I'm from the East Coast. So cool. I mean, I feel like you gave me a really good perspective, and hopefully everyone else, a good perspective on the site and the different things you have going on. It certainly should be a destination for people who are really into design or want to know more about the industry. I mean, you can sort of peruse it once, but whether through Patreon or your Twitter or your I'm sure you have some sort of newsletter, which I'm not on, but your site's regularly adding and updating content. And what are the best ways for people to sort of get hooked in? So there's Patreon, and then what are some of the other ways?
I would say it depends. I mean, if we try and make everything as easy to access to people, whatever way they prefer to access it. You mentioned a newsletter, so if email is your thing, then we've got that. If you want to just visit the website, it just goes straight there. We're very active on Twitter, as I mentioned earlier. Or if people want to reach out to us directly, they can do that too.
Awesome. Well, thanks for being on and sharing all the work and information you have, and for doing it in general. Like, it's an awesome site and service, and I think has a huge positive impact on both designers, but then also the games people get to play from designers down the road when they do a better job, right?
Thank you.
Thanks for being on.
Thanks for having us. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely. You keep up the great work.
Oh, thank you. All right. Bye, and bye everyone else.
Bye.
Hey everybody, Edo here, and thanks for watching Gaming with Edo. Reviews over here on this playlist, League and Insider videos over here on this one. Subscribe, share, all that good stuff. But most importantly, play some great games. Thanks.